In this video, we're going to speak about performing lookups and obtaining multiple results. We're going to do it first using the classic Excel formulas, and then we're going to do it using the dynamic arrays, which is much easier. So in the example here on the left hand side, you can see here that I've got the name of the father and the name of the child. So you can see here that each of the four fathers, Ben, Joe, Muhammad, and George, they have 3 sons and daughters. So as you can see here, their name is repeated 3 times. So each of them has 3 sons or daughters. And what we want to do is to select the father's name from this drop-down menu and be able to obtain the names of all of his children. Okay, so we're going to write a formula to do that. So this formula would be suitable if you have a case where you have many items that branch out of one item. So a company that has multiple branches, a father that has multiple sons or daughters, any items that branch out of one item. So you're able to use this formula. So you're doing a lookup and you're obtaining multiple results. In our case here, we're looking up a father's name and obtaining all of his children's names. Okay, so the formula we're going to write today is using the index function and the aggregate function mainly. And we're also going to use the row function and the rows function. Okay, so we're going to write equals index, and then the array here is the array where we want to obtain our result from. So the array that we want to obtain our result from is the column here containing the children name. So this is where we want to get our results from, because we want to get the names of the children, right? And then the row number, in the row number here, we're actually going to use the aggregate function. So the aggregate function is like a Swiss knife. You can use it to perform different tasks. So in our case here, we're going to use it as a small function. So as you can see here, it can do multiple roles. It can do different roles. You can use it as a sum, as a median, as a large, as a small function. We're actually going to use it as a small function in our case. So we've chosen here to use the aggregate function as a small function. For the second argument here, for the options inside the aggregate function, we're actually going to choose to ignore error values here. So I'm going to use number 6, or you can also use number 2. I'm going to use number 6 here to ignore error values, and you're going to see shortly why we're going to select this option. So just bear with me. Okay, so now we're going to input the array. So what is this array? So we chose to use the aggregate function as a small function. So what does a small function do? For a small function, you give it an array of numbers, and then it chooses to give you back the first smallest number. So the smallest number, or the second smallest number, or the third smallest number, and so on and so forth. So this is the array containing the numbers that the aggregate function is going to choose from. So it's going to choose to give you the first smallest number, or the second smallest number, or the third smallest number, or the fourth, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is the array that we need to generate. So for this array, we're going to write something here. We're going to do an array comparison operation so that it would give us the numbers that we need, that the aggregate function is going to choose from, is going to choose to spit out to us. Okay, so for this array, what we're going to do, we're going to do what's called an array comparison operation. So what is an array comparison operation? We're basically going to compare the names of the fathers here. Okay, so we're going to choose this whole array, and we're going to absolute that, and we're going to compare it to the name of the father that we have here in this cell. Okay, that we're searching for. Okay, and what we're going to do, I'm actually going to put brackets around that. And for this array here, for the aggregate function, we're actually going to also divide that. So we're going to divide this array comparison operation by itself. So why are we going to do that? Because this comparison operation here that we have, if I highlight this and press F9 on my keyboard, is going to give us values of true and false. It gives us true for the row when we have the name of the father to be Ben, which is the father that we're searching for here. So you can see here for the first row, it gave us a true. For the second one, it gave us a false, and so on until we run into Ben again, and then it gives us a true again, and so on and so forth. So when the row is equal to Ben, or when the cell is equal to Ben, it gives us true. When it's not, it gives us false. So I'm going to press Control and Z here back. I'm just showing you here what's the result of this array comparison operation. And we're going to divide it by itself, because if you divide a true by a true, when you do a division, which is an arithmetic operation, when you do any arithmetic operation with true and false values, Excel automatically converts them into ones and zeros. Okay, so because we're doing an arithmetic operation here, which is a division, dividing a true by a true is going to be dividing a 1 by a 1. The trues and falses are going to be converted to ones and zeros. So we're going to divide a 1 by a 1. However, when you have a false divided by a false, which in this case, any row here that is not Ben is going to be divided by itself, because we have the same comparison operation, and the order of the trues and falses is exactly the same. So you will see a true on the numerator being divided by a true in the denominator, and a false, and the false in the numerator being divided by a false in the denominator. So when you divide a false by a false, it's going to be a division of 0 by 0. So that's going to be a division by 0 error. So when you have a division by 0 error, here I'm just going to highlight the whole thing to show you the results of the division operation. So I'm press F9, so you can see here you will get a division by 0 error when you have falses. But when you have trues, you will get ones. Okay, so when you get this division by 0 error, this is when ignoring error values is useful here, that we selected on the second argument of the aggregate function. So it's going to ignore the error values, the division by 0 errors, and we're going to only have the ones, okay, for the aggregate function to choose from. Okay, so this is why we chose here to ignore the error values. Okay, so we've done that, and now what we need to do is to also multiply by, here we're going to multiply by the row function. Actually, the row function here, we're going to put inside it all these cells here containing the names of the fathers. Okay, and I'm going to absolute that, and I'm going to close my bracket here, and I'm going to subtract here also the row number of the cell here containing the header, which is the father's name, and I'm going to close my brackets here, and I need actually to enclose this whole subtraction operation in brackets. Okay, so I put that in brackets. So what's going to happen here, it's going to so this first part here is going to give me the row numbers of all these cells, so 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, etc. until 19, and this one is going to give me 7, right? So it's going to be 8 minus 7, it's going to be 1, and then 9 minus 7, 2, and then 10 minus 7, 3, and so on and so forth until we get 12 here on row number 19, which is 19 minus 7. So as you can see here, if we highlight the whole operation, you can see here I'm getting 1, 2, 3 until 12. Okay, so now we're having ones and zeros multiplied by the relative row numbers here of the names of the fathers here. So now what you will obtain after doing this multiplication, and because you're ignoring the errors, you will obtain only the row numbers for the rows that contain the name of the father correctly, which is Ben here. So you obtain row number 1, and you obtain row number 5, and then you will also get the division by 0 errors, which is going to be removed here by the ignoring error values input that we put here on the second argument. Okay, so we will only get the row numbers here where we have the correct father. And now here with the K, the K is basically, we are going to tell the aggregate function that we need the first smallest value, which is the smallest value of all the values. If we put a 1 here on the K, it will spit out the smallest value here out of all the values. And I'm actually going to close my index function as well. I'm going to press enter here. So as you can see here, it's going to give us the smallest value, which is a 1 which is the row containing the child Susan. Okay, but if we need to get the names of the other children as well, then instead of 1 here, we gotta put here the second smallest number here, which is for row number 5, which is gonna be Todd, right? But to make this an automatic thing, instead of putting 1, 2, 3 in the cells, you could actually use the rows function here. And the rows function can give you some sort of a sequence of numbers here. So you can actually choose here the rows function. You can do D4 to D4, but you're gonna absolute the first part here. So if you absolute the first part, then D4 to D4, the rows function counts the number of rows here for the range inside it. So here D4 to D4 is actually only 1 row, so it's gonna give us 1. But because the first part is absolute and the second part is relative, then when we drag the formula down, the D4 on the second part here is going to become a D5, and that's going to become a 2, right? And then when we drag it one more time, it's going to become a D6, so that's going to become a 3. The result of the rows function is going to become a 3, and so on and so forth. So this way we're able to obtain all the results. So let's close the bracket here, and then let's try our formula, and we're going to press enter. And as you can see here, we get Susan because the rows function gives us 1 here in this case. But then if we drag the formula down one more step, the rows function is D4 to D5, so it gives us 2 in this case, right? And so on and so forth. So if we drag it one more time, it gives us his third son, which is Liam. It's Ben's third son, but Ben does not have any more sons or daughters. So if we drag it anymore, we're going to get an error, but we can easily overcome that by wrapping that in an if error here. If there is an error, just give me a blank, and then I can do the formula again. And then when there is an error, we're just going to get a blank value here. Okay, so this is how you can perform lookups with multiple results here. And as I told you, this is applicable whenever you have many items that branch out of one item. So a teacher that has multiple students, a company that has multiple branches, a father that has multiple sons or daughters, and so on and so forth. Okay, so now we're going to take our formula a notch further, and we're going to do multiple results and also multiple criteria. So in this case here, I have added the name of the mother's name here. And so we will have here a column for the names of the mothers. And as you can see here, the mothers are also repeating because they are the wives or the partners of the fathers. So Ava is the wife or partner of Ben, and Olivia is for Joe, and Minna is for Muhammad, and Sophia is for George, and so on and so forth. And these are the names of their sons. So each father and mother or husband and wife have 3 sons or daughters here. So what if I need to extract here the name of the son or daughter of that particular father and mother? Okay, so as you can see here, my formula currently is only for the father. So as you can see here, the formula is only referring to the fathers, just like we did on the previous formula. And now we're gonna include the mother as well as part of the search criteria. So we're now adding one more criterion here to our search, which is for the mothers column. So in order to do that, in order to add the mothers, we're just gonna have to do a very small change to our formula, which is that we're gonna do another array comparison operation. So we're gonna compare the name of the mother, in this case here Ava, to the names of the mothers here on these rows here on this column. And we're gonna have to multiply it by the array comparison operation for the father. So I'm actually gonna add here one more bracket here to include this comparison operation inside one more bracket, and I'm gonna multiply that by an array comparison operation, which is that these mothers here would be equal to the name of the mother that we have here. Okay, and I'm gonna close that. So I'm closing here the bracket for this array comparison operation, and I'm gonna close the bracket here for the whole thing here in the numerator. and I'm going to copy this whole thing into the numerator that we've done, which is multiplying two array comparison operations, and I'm going to have to put it here on the denominator as well, do the same array comparison operation on the denominator. So why are we doing this? Why are we multiplying the two array comparison operations? The reason that we're doing that is because here we're going to get true and false values, and here we're going to get true and false values. And because of the arithmetic operation that we're doing, which is the multiplication, when you do a multiplication here, you're going to be multiplying ones by ones, or ones by zeros, or zeros by zeros. So in the case that we have the correct mother and father, we will get a 1 multiplied by 1, right? Because we're going to have the correct row number here for the father and the correct row number for the mother. So they are the husband and wife, and we're going to get the name of their son or daughter. So in this case here, let's just highlight the first array comparison operation, and I'll press F9, and I'll highlight the second one here, and I'll press F9 as well. So as you can see here, when we have the correct row number, we have a true by true, which is a 1 by 1. But when we don't have the correct row number for either the father or the mother, then we will have a 0, because even if you have the correct row number for the father and you have the incorrect row number for the mother, then you will have a 1 multiplied by 0, which is going to be a 0. Now, I'm just going to press escape here on my keyboard, because I won't be able to press Control and Z and undo both F9s. So I'm going to press escape here in order not to fix these true and false values, because I don't want them as true and false. I want them as the formulas. So I'm going to press escape here to escape that. And so you get the idea here that when we have the correct father and mother, we would have a true multiplied by a true, which is a 1 by 1, which is going to give us the correct row number. And then the row function here, subtraction here that we have, will end up giving us only the rows that contain the son or daughter for the correct father and mother, and then the rows function is going to give us all the sons and daughters here. So you can see here we're getting the correct first child here, which is Susan. If I drag the formula down, I'm going to get the rest of the children here. If I keep on dragging it, I won't get anything, because this is wrapped in if error, and we're getting an error. And then because of the if error, we're getting a blank value. So the bottom line here is that if you need to apply multiple criteria, you need to multiply the array comparison operations in order to get the multiple criteria at the same time. So these are AND criteria, basically. You want the name of the son or daughter for this particular father and this particular mother. So you're applying an AND criteria. I want the son or daughter for this father and this mother, okay? However, you could also do an OR criteria, which is obtaining the son or daughter for this particular father or this particular mother. So you can do that as well. So if I need to obtain the sons of and daughters of Ava or Ben, okay, in this case, actually, if I do Ava or Ben, then I'm gonna get only 3 sons. But if I select another partner or wife here, Olivia and Ben, then I'm gonna get 6 sons or daughters, because I'm gonna get the 3 sons or daughters for Olivia and the 3 sons or daughters for Ben. So how can we do that? Simply, what we need to do is that instead of doing a multiplication, I'm just gonna add my bracket here. So I'm doing my formula again. Instead of doing a multiplication, I'm gonna do an addition here. So I'm gonna add this particular array comparison operation, so the array comparison operation for the father to the array comparison operation for the mother here. Okay, so I'm gonna do an OR criteria here, and I'm gonna also close the bracket here, and I'm gonna replicate as well what I'm doing here in the numerator. I'm gonna replicate it in the denominator, just like I did previously. So in this case here, if we get a 1 plus 1, it's going to be a 2, but it's going to be divided by a 2 in the denominator, so it's going to ultimately become a 1. If we get a 1 plus 0, it's going to be a 1 and then divided by 1, it's going to be ultimately a 1 as well. And if we get a 0 plus 0, it's going to be a 0, and then divided by 0, we're going to get an error, and then it's going to be removed by the remove errors input that we put here on the second argument. Okay, so in this case here, when we have Olivia and Ben, we're going to get all the 6 sons of Olivia and Ben. So the 3 sons and daughters of Ben and the 3 sons and daughters of Olivia, because they are not partners. So we will get 6 results here in this case. So I'm going to press enter here. And as you can see here, if I drag the formula down, I'm going to be able to get the 6 sons and daughters of Olivia or Ben, basically. So the 3 sons and daughters of Olivia and the 3 sons and daughters of Ben. But if I select here Ben's partner, which is Ava, I'm only going to get 3 results, which is the sons and daughters of Ava and Ben, as they are partners. Right, so the bottom line here is that if we need to do an OR criteria, if we need this condition or that condition, then we need to do an addition in this case, just like we have done here. Okay, so always remember, if you need to do an AND criteria, then you need to do multiplication, and if you need to do an OR criteria, then you need to do addition. Okay, so on the first case here, we have done it without using dynamic arrays or the new dynamic array functions in Excel. So we're now going to see how to do it using the dynamic array functions in Excel, and it's going to be specifically using the filter function, and it's actually going to be very, very easy. We're not going to write a long formula using dynamic arrays. So with dynamic arrays, we can use the filter function here to perform our first case. So filter, what we need to input first of all is the array, and the array here is the array where we want to obtain our result from. So our result is going to be the name of the child. So I'm just going to select here the names of the children here, and I'm going to absolute that. And what I want to include is actually this array here. So we're going to do the array comparison operation, this array to be equal to Ben. Okay, and then if empty, the third argument here, the if empty argument. So if it's empty, what should I do? I'm just gonna give it here a blank value. I'm gonna get nothing. So I'm gonna press enter, and as you can see here, it spills out the names of the sons and daughters of Ben here, as you can see. And if I change here the name of the father, then we get the names of the sons and daughters for that particular father. So as you can see here, the dynamic arrays makes it very easy to obtain our correct result, and it's much easier this way using the filter function. If we need to do here an AND or criteria, then we can do the same thing here. Filter, I'm just gonna first of all feed it the array, which is the range where we want to obtain our result from, and then I want to include first of all the mother to be equal to Ava here. Okay, and I'm gonna actually enclose that in brackets. You'd have to do that, to put that in brackets in order for it to work. So we're gonna multiply the first criterion here, which is the mother's name, by the second criterion here, which is the father's name, just like we learned before on the previous example. And if you have a third criterion, of course, and this applies to the previous example, if you have a third criterion, you can just multiply that third criterion in order to do 3 criteria. If you have a fourth, you can multiply the fourth, and so on and so forth. And if empty here, I'm just going to do blank value here, and I'm going to press enter. And as you can see here, we get the 3 sons and daughters of Ava and Ben. And if we actually choose a different partner than Ben's partner, we don't get any results because Ben does not have any sons or daughters with Olivia, right? Because here we're doing an AND criteria, but if we need to do an OR, then this way we're gonna get the 6 sons and daughters of Ben or Olivia. And if I press enter here, we get the 6 sons and daughters. And of course, you need to bear in mind that because the array spills out, so if you have anything in the array spill range here, if you have anything in the array spill range, you will get an error here. So in this case, if I put the plus again and I try to spill the array, I'm going to get a spill error because I have something in the way. But as soon as I remove it, I get all the sons and daughters of Ben or Olivia. And also, if you need to get the whole row instead of just the name of the son or daughter. If you need to get the whole row, so you get Ava, Ben, and Susan, you get the name of the mother and the father and the child, then instead of selecting only the column here for the son or daughter, you just select the whole array here. Okay, and if you press enter, you get the whole row here using dynamic array. So as you can see here, it's very easy to do lookups with multiple results and multiple criteria using the dynamic array function, specifically the filter function. So I hope that video was useful for you. If you found the video useful, make sure to like and share the video, and make sure to please subscribe to the channel in order not to miss future videos as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. If you like the video, press the like button and share it with your friends. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so that you'll be notified with all the new videos. And please make sure to follow me on social media and subscribe to the newsletter so that you can get all the new updates and videos. You will find the links below in the description. If you have any comments, suggestions, or feedback, please leave them below in the comments section. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one.